Welcome to CareSmarts 360 on air. It's a home care podcast. I'm Dennis Gill, Senior Sales Consultant at CareSmarts 360. Today our topic would be navigating the caregiver shame and what the strategies would be for awareness and prevention for that. It's a pretty hard reality that caregivers shame takes a toll on care providers far too often. And it's a silent struggle that can lead to isolation, burnout, and ultimately a decline in care quality. Imagine feeling guilty for needing a break and ashamed for feeling frustrated or inadequate because you can't do it all. So, this is the reality for many caregivers. So, the key lies in awareness and prevention. We need to normalize the challenges of caregiving. It's a pretty demanding role, and it's okay to not have all the answers. So, by openly discussing caregiver shame, we empower individuals to seek help without feeling judged. Educational programs can equip caregivers with coping mechanisms for stress and help them navigate difficult emotions. Support groups foster a sense of community where caregivers can share experiences and find strength in shared challenges. Remember, prioritizing your own well being isn't selfish, it's essential. A healthy caregiver can provide better care. Let's break the cycle of shame and create a support system that empowers caregivers to thrive, not just survive in their important role. So today we have on the panel Susanne White, the founder of Caregiver Warrior, a resource hub, website, blog, and interactive platform for caregivers to find supportive ways to take care of themselves. So welcome to the podcast, Susanne.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for having me.
No, we are really glad. We're really glad to have you here and on this very important topic. Say, we would love to have the feedback from your side, how it would be beneficial for the caregivers. So, really looking forward for that.
Thank you.
Right. So then we would be having some queries regarding that. So I'll be just putting in the questions for you. The first and the foremost thing that I would like to start off with is that what are the most common situations that trigger caregivers shame?
This is a very good question and a very complicated subject. And the quick answer is just about anything a
Mhm.
caregiver can do can trigger shame. And I'll tell you, when caregivers sign up for caregiving, I was a caregiver for various family members, including my parents. I was deeply committed, as most caregivers are. And it's a very serious responsibility and commitment. You're caring for someone else's life and well being. So it comes with a lot of responsibility. And most times, a lot of our personalities are type A personalities, very go getting, controlling, good, sharp skill sets. But there's a lot of perfectionism
Mhm.
that we can bring to caregiving because we want to do everything perfectly. And we have big expectations of ourselves and the situations. And this is the breeding ground for shame. We put ourselves in the position where we're not human and we can't make mistakes. I made so many mistakes during my caregiving journey, so many. And I felt bad about so many
Mhm.
until I began to realize that the mistakes were learning opportunities for me. I would get more information, I would be wiser, I wouldn't do that again. But sadly, in the beginning, I felt bad about myself because I was making mistakes. And I want to get clear about guilt and shame. And the reason I'm sort of going into this little bit of a definition here, because I think to answer any question about shame, we have to understand that guilt is about feeling sadness or remorse about a thing, about
Uh-huh.
something that, we did or something that we didn't do. Whereas shame is feeling bad about ourselves,
So, yeah, I get that.
right?
I really get
It's
that.
a
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difference. So shame makes us feel like we're flawed in some ways, that we're unlovable or we're bad people or bad caregivers. We feel bad about things that are maybe out of our control, things that don't go the way we want. It's not only our fault, it's because there's something wrong with us and we're not good people.
I
So
understand that. Yeah.
so there's so many opportunities that can trigger shame in caregivers, and that's why I love having this conversation, because I think the awareness of the fact of what expectations we're bringing to the caregiving journey. I think that begins the healing process and how we can avoid or at least manage our shame, because every single thing we do has the potential to trigger shame in us.
Very rightly said. Very rightly said, Susan. I can obviously I would also I would say think about some things that sometimes I also feel guilt about. Everybody does. Everybody does. Someday or some way or in some way we do that. But I would definitely take care of that now after listening to this. Yeah, I surely will. Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that.
It's difficult because I think a lot of us do bring perfectionism. I think we live our lives that way. And then when we come to the
Yeah.
caregiving journey, I'm a perfectionist. I'm a recovering, Brene Brown calls herself a recovering perfectionist. And I'm the same way. I'm a recovering perfectionist because I'm still a perfectionist, but I have so much pressure on myself. And when I first started my caregiving journey with my parents, I was going to do it, all by myself. I was going to do it perfectly, and I was going to do it right away. That's how I set myself up with the best intentions, but I set myself up for feeling a lot of shame. I can't do this. I'm not good at this. I'm going to hurt my parents. Something's going to happen to them on my watch. And I'm a really bad person. It was awful.
I get that. I bet that's a very good term that I learned today. Recovering, you said, right?
Yes, a
That's a very
recovering
simple
perfectionist.
recovering
And it's a
perfectionist. Yeah.
process. It never
Yeah.
goes away.
Obviously, I think it goes with us till the time we're alive. It goes with us. Yeah. No, it's a good to learn every day. We're learning some things and learning from a person like you. Obviously, it would help everybody.
Well, it's interesting because the reason I'm so fascinated with this topic is because two different things happen. I Just to give a little background, and I don't talk about this often, but I had brain surgery a year ago, and I'm fine.
Oh,
It was benign and it was great, but it's been the healing process. Even though I was up and ready to go in 6 to 8 weeks. It's astonishing what they can do now today. I feel shame that I'm not back to my normal self yet.
oh,
Okay. So,
okay.
and I'm always watching myself. I'm watching I feel like I'm the guinea pig, I watch myself to see how I compound my emotions, within my caregiving role and then within people caring for me. So I realize, oh, I feel bad about myself because I'm not healing quickly, or that I don't want to tell people that I don't feel great. And that's crazy. That's shame. That's not guilt. That's shame. So that's
Yeah.
sort of I started looking at shame. And then I saw two people, actually, two caregivers that are wonderful, both of which had situations, when caring for their loved ones with healthcare institutions.
Hmm.
Someone took someone to a hospital and it wasn't a good situation, so they took them to another hospital, which ended up being worse. And what I saw, which broke my heart, was that I saw, it's Life with Grams, what I saw her feel so bad about, felt so bad about, uh, herself, taking care of her, doing everything she could possibly do, and no one is a better caregiver than she is, just feeling dismay and sadness and remorse about decisions she was making when she was making the best decisions she possibly could. And it broke my heart because I kept saying to her, you are doing an incredible job. No
Yeah.
one is going to take care of her better than you are. And then another friend of mine also had her mom, in assisted living, and it wasn't going really well. And there were problems with a healthcare issue, and they just weren't getting to it fast enough. And again, I saw a shame that she felt so bad about herself and so guilty that she couldn't get the immediate care that she was demanding, which had nothing to do with her,
Oh,
nothing to do with her loved one. It had to do with the healthcare system.
healthcare
And she
system.
you know what I'm saying? And she was doing everything she possibly could. And of course, she finally got the care she needed for her mom. But in the interim, I could see she was so upset with herself. So I'm fascinated with this because I think the dangerous thing caregivers do is they compound their emotions. Like I used to get angry when I was angry. I used to get frightened when I was frightened.
And
I used to get resentful when I was resentful. And I used to be ashamed of the fact that I felt shame. So I think we really have to begin to understand what we're thinking about ourselves as we're taking care of others.
yeah, pretty rightly said, Suzanne. So basically, not hiding our feelings, but still not showing it to everybody. Okay, okay, okay.
Well, and I think and being aware
Being
and
aware. Yeah.
compassion, being aware, I know we're going to talk in a little bit about, what companies can do and agencies can do to support caregivers, to support, employees, professional caregivers or caregivers in general. And, they can create an environment. They can create an environment where accountability is extremely important because when mistakes happen or miscommunication happens or perhaps there needs to be changes in activity or changes in practices, that accountability is really, really important. However, we also have to have an environment where someone feel that where we frame the mistakes or the accountability about the mistakes as learning situations,
Yeah.
not that they are incompetent
That,
or, do you know what I mean, unskilled or a bad people. I think agencies and I think companies and just people in general with caregivers have to understand that when a caregiver makes a mistake, we have to be compassionate and we have to communicate them and make them feel safe to discuss how they feel about that mistake or making that mistake.
yeah, and that does answer my second question also that how the home care agencies can create a culture that encourages open communication about whatever struggles the caregivers are facing.
Yes, and again, I want to repeat that accountability is really important. However, in addition to that accountability, I think what happens a lot of times is once the accountability is there,
Hmm.
we don't go the next step to give support
Yeah,
because most people want to do the right thing,
yeah,
caregivers especially, whether
caregivers
professional,
specifically. Yeah,
right? Whether they're professional or family or unpaid, they want to do the right thing, especially in this situation, which is so extremely important. So if a mistake is made, yes, we need to take accountability and walk through it and see what happened and why it happened. But then we also need to ask the question, how do you feel about that? Are you okay?
yeah, that needs to be asked. That definitely needs to be asked. So, just adding to this thing, so what do you think? How can technology be leveraged to create a more supportive environment for caregivers and potentially reducing feelings of shame?
So today's world's amazing. And I have used all kinds of technology to help me in general, which I
Hmm.
think has eliminated shame. And I think everything from picking up the phone, which is technology, and
Yeah,
calling another caregiver, right? And saying,
yeah,
hello, there are all, and you have to be careful about this, but there are all kinds of wonderful Facebook groups where people share their feelings and their tips and they communicate with each other. I think that's quite amazing. I think there are apps that caregivers, agencies, and institutions can use that perhaps can organize things and take stress and share responsibilities and do check-ins. There's all kinds of amazing things today that caregivers can use and people can employ to help them with their caregiving journey. I think anything that can help a caregiver organize themselves, manage themselves, and give them space and time that they need to be supported is brilliant. So that can be anything from an app to a Zoom call
okay.
to an to I mean, like, especially during COVID, I know a lot of people that were in group therapy, for caregivers or support groups for caregivers over Zoom, which was
Yeah,
life saving because we're supposed to connect.
connect. Yeah,
We can, right, we can be compassionate and empathetic and get support when we have human connection. And I think the technology today is amazing because there's no reason why you can't reach out to someone and get the support you need.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. And I was about to ask my next question, but that obviously answers that. There's some effective strategies to prevent caregiver shame. Anything more you would like to add in that?
Well, yeah, I think it's really important to surround yourself as a caregiver. I think it's very important for caregivers to understand they deserve to get what they need. They deserve space. They deserve their space to be and to share and to talk. I think anytime we support caregivers and give them an environment and space where they don't feel alone, they don't feel where they feel safe, they can feel
Feel
safe
safe.
to share how they feel. I think that's extremely important. And I think caregivers really need to feel that they have a team around them or a group around them that loves them, that is compassionate and sympathetic and allows them to be who they are and reminds them that they are human.
Yeah, that does. And they're doing so much for the people who are there, who require their help.
Yes.
Obviously, it does. And any specific courses or programs that you think can be implemented to equip caregivers, mainly with coping mechanisms for caregiver shame? Anything you want to suggest in that?
Well, I think the first thing, I mean, anything from practicing mindfulness or meditation um, to even yoga. I
Yeah,
mean, anything that helps you feel better in your own skin during your caregiver role. So, in other words, eating healthy and getting rest and socializing and building a team, and self-awareness. I think that self-awareness is really, really important. I always say that, you need to take your emotional temperature. I think we can avoid shame by taking our emotional temperature. In other words, saying to ourselves, what do I feel physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Am I upset right now? That mistake really threw me. I'm shaking. I'm in freeze, fight, or, flee. My nervous system, being aware of how we're feeling. And I think then we can understand that if we're in trouble, because if we're not feeling, if we're exhausted and hungry and depleted, if we're in trouble, that we understand we deserve to reach out and get feedback from someone else. That's the
definitely.
best way to avoid shame, be keeping everything inside in your own head. It's like being in a very bad neighborhood alone, you
Yeah,
know, you,
I get
you're
that.
right. You
Yeah,
need to talk. So caregivers need to set themselves up for success. They need to understand that they're probably trying to do too much, too fast, too perfectly, and that's going to be hurtful. So they need to be in touch with what they're feeling when that mistake does happen. Do they feel it's a learning experience or is it devastating? And does it make me feel like I'm a bad person? And if it's making me feel like a bad person, I need to raise my hand, I need to talk to somebody, and I need to figure that out for myself so I can feel relief.
definitely. Because till the time the caregivers there themselves are not 100%, they cannot provide 100% to the people they're servicing for. Yeah,
Yes,
so they
yes.
need to be there.
Yes, and we don't want to feel miserable. When I first started my caregiving journey with my parents, I was miserable. I was exhausted and depleted and frightened. We're always frightened. There's a river. I always say there's a river of fear that runs underneath our caregiving journey because we don't want those people we love or care for to be anything other than really healthy or get better. And sometimes there's a fear that that's never going to happen. So when I first started, I was really, really miserable, and I realized I had to change. My parents weren't going to change. The situation wasn't going to change. I had
Yeah,
to change, right? So
obviously.
I had to start to really love myself and understand that if I was feeling bad about me, I needed to do whatever it took to stop feeling that way.
Rightly said, Susan. And obviously, I knew about the caregivers earlier on also, but this things that we discussed today obviously change many things in my mind about the caregivers, how they feel, and how they should feel, basically, how they should feel. That's the right thing, I would say. So thank you, Suzanne, for sharing these great insights today. I'm sure the audience got to know effective strategy to combat caregiver shame. And to you, my wonderful audience, thanks for tuning in. Until the next episode, this is Dennis Gill signing off. Ciao, everybody. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.